Sarah stood at the edge of her family's pasture, her heart pounding like a wild drum in her chest. The sun hung low in the sky, setting the world ablaze in vibrant oranges and soft pinks. But all she felt was an unsettling chill clenched around. Her heart tightening with every passing moment, she glanced at the horizon, where the warm colors of dusk bled into the encroaching shadows of night. "Is this how it all ends?" she whispered, the words tinged with desperation. In the depth of her soul, she feared that the radiant sunsets that had painted her childhood would soon be replaced by the stark gray of concrete, a promise of change. That felt like a thief in the night, but her thoughts drifted back to her anchor, the only one who truly understood her. Jacketh's magnificent chestnut stallion was grazing fretfully in the field, tossing his head occasionally as if sensing the storm brewing within her. Sarah felt a flicker of warmth in her chest as she approached him, the familiar tug on her heart. Pulsing with each step, "Tomorrow changes everything, doesn't it?" she said softly, almost hoping he would respond with a comforting nicker. From the first moment she laid eyes on him, there had been an undeniable connection. She could feel his spirit intertwining with hers, a bond that transcended the mere existence. Of horse and rider, Jake lifted his head, his dark eyes staring into hers with an intensity that made her feel as if he were reading the deepest corners of her heart. It was comforting yet unnerving. The weight of the impending change felt even more significant as she prepared to face a community meeting that would seal their fate. Wild horses had had their day, and the developers were eager to claim the land for new shopping complexes. As the dusk deepened, a sudden gust of wind swept through the pasture, ruffling the tufts of Jake's mane. For a fleeting moment, she imagined the winds carrying her worries away, swirling them into oblivion. But the chilling thought remained. Would she lose everything she held dear? "Do you think they'll understand?" Sarah asked, running her fingers through Jake's mane, her heart aching with the uncertainty of it all. "Can we save this place, our home?" The tremor in her voice betrayed her usual confidence. With each passing moment, the sun slipped lower in the sky, and shadows stretched like long, languid fingers over the ground. Sarah felt the pressure building in her chest, each breath seemingly heavier than the last. Jake stepped closer, his warmth wrapping around her, providing solace against the encroaching darkness. "All right," she resolved, forcing a determined smile. "We'll show them what this place means to us." With newfound vigor, she mounted Jake, the familiar rhythm of his gait beneath her a soothing balm to her restless spirit. They set off down the wooded trail that wound through the property. Last ride before the storm. As they galloped through the woods, Sarah marveled at the beauty around them. The leaves whispered secrets as they danced in the evening breeze, and the towering trees stood like ancient guardians, holding stories of laughter, tears, and triumphs. Each moment they spent on the trail carved memories into her heart, a reminder of what was at stake, yet amidst the beauty, an underlying tension thrummed in the air. What if this was the last ride she'd ever take through this enchanted forest? What if tomorrow changed everything? She felt a lump rise in her throat, a wave of emotions caught between hope and despair. "Jake," she called out, urging him to run faster, desperation fueling her need for freedom. The tall grass bowed beneath them as they dashed through the fields, her hair streaming behind her like a banner of defiance. This was their world, and they would not surrender it without a fight. As they slowed to a gentle trot, Sarah realized she was not alone. She glanced up to see the first stars piercing through the twilight, tiny diamonds twinkling in the vast expanse above. Her heart swelled with a mixture of awe and sorrow. "Just look at it," she whispered, gesturing around them. "This is our home." Jake nudged her gently, and in that moment Sarah felt an overwhelming connection, as if he understood the weight of their world hanging in the balance. She could feel his spirit resonating with her two souls entwined in a battle for what was right. As dusk turned to night, she and Jake made their way back home, the heaviness in her heart a constant reminder of the uncertain battle ahead. A part of her wanted to lock this evening in a vault within her memory, a beautiful escape from the chaos approaching. But the realization of what was to come hung in the atmosphere like a sinister cloud, threatening to smother their happiness. Once they reached the stable, Sarah could feel the weight of the world settling in the pit of her stomach. She unsettled Jake and brushed him down, her hands moving methodically over his smooth coat as thoughts buzzed in her mind like angry bees. Every stroke was a silent conversation, a promise whispering through the fibers of her heart that she would not fight this battle alone. "I'll find a way to protect this place, I promise," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to cry, the worry pouring out in solemn waves. Jake gently bumped against her shoulder, a soft and reassuring gesture as if to say that they would face the storm together. After tending to him, she leaned against his side, enveloped in his warmth, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat align with her own. In that moment, she knew that no matter the battle they had to face, Jake would be her unwavering strength, a steady heartbeat against the chaos of the world. As night descended, Sarah reflected on the looming change with renewed determination. The developers may want to strip the land bare, but they would not take her memories, her laughter, or her connection to this place. With Jake by her side, she felt emboldened, ready to stand up for their home no matter the odds. Tomorrow's meeting may bring uncertainty and fear, but tonight she had Jake, and that was enough. Together, they would face whatever storms awaited them, united in a bond that could not be broken, fueled by hope and resilience that ran deeper than the roots of the ancient trees surrounding them. As the stars twinkled above, Sarah whispered, "We're fighters, Jake. We'll never give up." The wind carried her words into the night, a vow etched in the fabric of their story, as enduring as the love between a girl and her horse. The inevitable farewell. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, the clouds hanging low as if they too were bearing the weight of the uncertainty that engulfed Sarah's world. She woke to the sound of raindrops tapping gently against the window, an ominous reminder of the impending storm both in the atmosphere and in her life. In the stillness of the early hours, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the relentless tick of the clock echo in her heart. With a sense of dread clinging to her, she slipped out of bed and made her way to the stables, her feet crunching on the gravel path that led to her sanctuary. Each step felt heavier than the last, the mud squelching beneath her boots, mirroring the turmoil brewing inside her. She had always taken solace in Jake's presence, but today, the prospect of facing him felt almost monumental. As she entered the stable, the familiar smell of hay and leather wrapped around her, providing a brief sense of comfort. But her heart dropped as her eyes fell on Jake. He stood quietly in his stall, his large brown eyes reflecting her apprehension. She felt as though he were a mirror showcasing her fears and doubts. "I wish I could be brave like you," she whispered as she approached him. He nudged her shoulder, his warm breath washing over her and dispelling some of the chill that had settled within her. In that moment, she felt a flicker of hope. Jake had always been the steadfast anchor in her life, his spirit unyielding. After grooming him, she decided they should go for a ride, a final effort to escape the chaos that awaited them. She saddled Jake, slipping into her role as his rider with ease, the familiar sensations grounding her amidst the storm brewing outside. The rain intensified, but Sarah wasn't deterred. She craved the freedom of the open fields, a desperately needed escape before the meeting that would potentially alter their lives forever. With a swift kick, Jake leapt into a gallop, effortlessly slicing through the rain-soaked pastures. Water splashed up around them, each stride releasing a surge of adrenaline that reminded her of the bond they shared. Despite the protest of the elements, she felt emboldened and alive, the air filled with the scent of damp earth and wild grass. As they raced through the fields, Sarah felt the worries of the day begin to fade, if only for a moment. The rhythmic pounding of Jake's hooves resonated with the rhythm of her heart, reminding her that they were alive and together. But abruptly, a distant rumble echoed across the landscape, pulling her back to the unsettling reality that awaited. Then, after what felt like an eternity of freedom, they slowed to a trot in a secluded part of the woods. The trees formed a natural canopy, their leaves absorbing much of the rain, but here, silence wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. Sarah dismounted, tethering Jake to a nearby tree as she took a moment to breathe. "This might be the last time we share this peace," she murmured to Jake, her heart sinking at the thought. The impending meeting loomed large, and no matter how much she tried to cling to her optimism, despair clawed at her insides. Just then, a rustle in the underbrush made her whirl around, her heart racing. From the shadows emerged a small deer, cautiously stepping into the clearing. The fragile creature seemed to sense their presence, its large eyes wide with curiosity. For a moment, time froze. Sarah felt a shared understanding with this innocent creature, both aware of the fragility of their worlds. As the deer darted away, a surge of sadness washed over her. "We're all just trying to survive," she whispered, turning back to Jake. Their peaceful haven was being threatened. and the thought left a bitter taste in her mouth. Suddenly, the calm was shattered as a gust of wind howled through the trees, snapping branches and sending leaves spiraling into the air. Sarah and Jake stood frozen, feeling the tension crackle around them as dark clouds rolled across the sky like an approaching army. The storm that had once been a mere whisper was now a threatening roar. "It's time to go," she said nervously, leading Jake back towards the stable. The rhythmic sound of rain pounding against the earth was joined by the booming of thunder, sending tremors through the ground beneath her boots. The ride back felt eternal, the raindrops blending with her tears as she navigated the familiar path. She wished she could turn back the clock, to live in the moment and forget the tumultuous world waiting for her. Every drop of rain felt like a reminder of the storm brewing both externally and within. When they finally reached the stable, Sarah hurriedly led Jake inside, his coat gleaming despite the rain. She unfastened his saddle, hands trembling as the weight of their impending fate pressed heavily. Securely tying him in, she looked into his eyes, finding comfort in the horse that had always been her sanctuary. "I'll never let them take you away from me," she promised, her voice shaking with emotion. "We'll fight together no matter what." Jake nickered softly in response, and for a moment, she felt fortified by his unwavering loyalty. As the hour approached for the community meeting, she donned her coat and headed out into the rain, once more feeling as though she were walking into the eye of a storm. The town hall loomed in the distance, a formidable structure that felt alive with murmurs of anxious residents. Nervous energy crackled around her as she stepped inside, the atmosphere thick with apprehension. The hall was filled to capacity, people whispering among themselves as they awaited the start of the proceedings. Sarah took her seat among her neighbors, feeling outnumbered by the uncertainty and fear that lingered in the air. As the mayor approached the podium, she felt the knot in her stomach tighten. "Tonight, we gather to discuss the future of our beloved land," he began, his voice echoing against the brick walls. "The developers have proposed plans for a new shopping complex that promises jobs and revenue. However, we must consider what we stand to lose in the process." As he continued, Sarah felt her heart race. She scanned the room, locking eyes with familiar-faced friends and neighbors who had shared countless moments on these very grounds. Memories flooded her mind, summer picnics, laughter, and the carefree times spent under the sun. When the mayor opened the floor for discussion, Sarah barely heard the voices around her. Instead, she was inwardly battling with herself, reminding herself of the promise she made to Jake. Several residents spoke in favor of the developers, citing economic benefits and progress, while others passionately defended their home, insisting, "But the land held memories too precious to sell. Stand up." A voice called from the back, snapping Sarah from her thoughts. It was her friend Lily, who had always supported her dreams and ambitions. "This land is our history. We can't just let it vanish." Sarah felt the heat of encouragement rising through her veins. It was now or never. Taking a deep breath, she stood up, her heart racing. "That's right. We can't lose our home." Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. "This place holds the stories of our families and the love we've cultivated here. We can't trade it for a few fleeting moments of economic gain." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some nodding in agreement while others looked skeptical. Sarah's pulse quickened. She was swimming against a tide that felt relentless. Unyielding, she continued, "Each of us has walked these fields. We've laughed, cried, and built a community here. If we allow developers to come in and tear this apart, what we have left?" The energy in the room shifted as she spoke, a current of determination lighting up faces that had once seemed defeated. But the mayor raised a hand, calling for order. "We must remember the complexities of progress," he stated with authority. "Change is inevitable. We should consider both sides carefully." As the crowd simmered, Sarah felt the weight of the moment press heavily upon her shoulders. But at what cost? She countered, finding her voice strengthening. "Change doesn't have to mean loss. Let's work together to find a solution that honors our history while allowing for growth." The room erupted into arguments, voices rising and overlapping like a tempestuous sea. Supporters and opponents of the development debated fiercely, the air thick with tension. Sarah's heart raced as she desperately sought to make sense of the chaos. Amidst the discord, she sensed something stir within her, a fire ignited by passion and urgency. "Please," she cried, calling for silence. We can find a way to preserve our homes, but it requires unity. It requires us to stand together." As she spoke, she locked eyes with Jake, standing just outside the doorway of the hall, his silhouette perfectly framed against the growing darkness of the night. In that moment, she felt a jolt of strength coursing through her veins, the connection between them fueling her resolve, together. "For our land," she declared, raising her voice above the din, a battle cry fueling the embers of hope that flickered in the crowd. Little did she know tonight would determine their futures. As the storm raged outside, so too the storm of opinions within the town hall, and Sarah was prepared to fight to protect all the memories they had built. The stakes were high, but her heart was set. She would not let fear cloud her resolve. Tomorrow might bring inevitable change, but today took a stand for all they cherished, and together they would blaze a path forward. The unseen stormed the night, dragged on, heavy with uncertainty, as Sarah stepped out of the town hall, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. The lively chatter of townsfolk faded into hushed murmurs as she walked, the weight of their opinions hanging in the air like dark clouds. The room had been electrified with passion. Some were eager for change, while others stood resolute in their defensive tradition. But the path ahead was still shrouded in chaos, and Sarah felt tension coiled tightly in her gut. Outside, the first drops of rain fell hard against the pavement, sending rhythmical patterns that danced across the night. She hugged her coat tightly around her shoulders against the sudden chill, her heart racing as she made her way to Jake. He waited patiently by the stables, his presence a balm to her frazzled nerves. "Jake," she breathed, reaching for his. Familiar warmth. I don't know if we did enough. The enormity of the evening threatened to engulf her once more. It felt as if the winds of change were spiraling closer, ready to consume everything she cherished. As she slipped into the saddle, Jake shifted, sensing her unease. "Let's take a ride," she decided, desperate to escape her own turbulent thoughts. The rhythmic sound of hooves against the earth brought a moment of calm, a stark contrast to the internal tempest raging inside her. They galloped through the darkened fields, the rain intensifying, soaking both rider and horse. But with each beat of Jake's hoof, Sarah felt a flicker of defiance rising within. They would not go quietly into the night. They were fighters, unyielding in their love for this land. But as they rounded the bend near the old oak tree landmark, steeped in their shared history, Sarah tightened her grip on the reins. The tree with its gnarled branches felt like a sentinel of their memories, and a sense of foreboding washed over her. Something was not right. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and Jake whinnied nervously, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Sarah's heart raced as she pulled back on the reins, trying to soothe him. "Easy, boy," she murmured, but the feeling of dread deepened. The air grew thick with anticipation, and a low rumble echoed in the distance, a harbinger of an impending storm. Before she could react, bright flashes of lightning illuminated the sky, jagged streaks of silver pounding through the clouds. Winds howled harder, sending twirling leaves scattering across the fields like restless spirits. Panic surged within Sarah. She turned Jake around, urging him forward, her instincts screaming at her to return to the safety of the stable. But the storm's onslaught intensified, lashing rain against her cheeks like icy needles. In the chaos, she lost her sense of direction. The familiar path blurred, the uncomforting landscape transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and thunderous noise. "Come on, Jake, we have to get back," she called, her voice barely making it over the cacophony. The ground beneath them was turning from solid earth to mush, and she felt the pang of fear grip her heart as they continued to gallop through the thickening darkness. An ominous crack split the air. A nearby tree, battered by the storm's fury, gave way and crashed to the ground with a deafening crack. Jake reared back, startled by the sudden explosion of wood and earth. Sarah leaned forward, gripping Jake's mane tightly, panic clawing at her insides. "Whoa!" she shouted, desperately trying to regain control as he backed away from the fallen tree. The surrounding chaos seemed almost alive, and she felt poised, on the edge of something far beyond her control. The world around them was drenched in wild chaos, but Sarah fought against the fear. "You can do this, Jake," she yelled, desperation lending urgency to her voice. "Trust me?" Finally, with a surge of resolve, she coaxed him forward. The storm raged on, but together they pressed through, hearts pounding in unison, pushing against the wind's might. With each stride, Sarah found herself gripping tighter to the reins, A bond forged not only of fear but of a shared pursuit for safety. In the distance, she spotted the outline of the stable, a dim beacon of refuge. Against the tumultuous backdrop, just as hope surged within her, a flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating a figure blocking their path. A man, soaked to the bone, waving his arms frantically. "Stop!" he shouted, but Sarah's instincts kicked in. "We don't have time," she yelled back, urging Jake onward. The man, however, stepped forward defiantly, and in that moment, everything seemed to shift out as Sarah and Jake drew closer. She recognized the man, David, the town's mayor, his face twisted with urgency. "Don't go that way. There are downed trees," he warned, fear palpable in his voice. The crack of thunder punctuated his statement, and Sarah hesitated, torn between the path that led to safety and the fear of getting trapped in the storm. "Help us," she shouted back, her heart racing as the wind howled around them. "We need to get back to the stable." David nodded, his determination steel-like. "Follow me, I know a way." With a jolt, Sarah turned her focus back to Jake, who sensed her wavering confidence. "Come on, boy, we can do this." She nudged him with her heels, and he responded, moving forward at a brisk pace. But as they approached David, the intensity of the storm crescendoed, the air crackling all around them. David led them down a narrow, winding path, the weight and chaos of the storm closing in around them. Each flash of lightning illuminated the vulnerability of the world, the shadows creeping closer, and the darkness seemed eager to swallow them whole. "Just a bit further," David yelled, his voice barely piercing the thick blanket of rain. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest, the adrenaline coursing through her as they pushed forward, fighting, not just against the storm, but also against the looming specter of uncertainty that had gripped her in the town hall. Suddenly, a deafening crash ricocheted through the wood. Another tree had fallen, sending a spray of splintered wood into the air like daggers. Jake reared again, panic flashing in his dark eyes, and Sarah struggled to calm him. "Easy, Jake, just a little more. We're almost there." With great effort, she managed to steer him closer to David, who waited, his determination palpable. The path was narrow and treacherous. The wind bore down on them, mocking their plight, but Sarah's resolve only strengthened in one final push. They rounded a corner and the stable loomed into view, a lighthouse amidst the storm. Relief washed over Sarah, filling her with renewed energy. Just as they reached the entrance, another brilliant flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the landscape in stark light for a brief moment before plunging it back into darkness. David helped her dismount, and together they guided Jake into the shelter. Once inside, Sarah felt the weight of the world start to lift. They locked the stable doors behind them, trapping the chaos outside. The storm roared against the structure, but within the refuge of wood and hay, she felt safe. "Thank you," Sarah panted, her adrenaline still coursing through her as she looked at David. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." He nodded, breathing heavily. "It was too risky to ride out in this. We've got to keep ourselves safe, especially with the storm reaching its peak." She could see the worry etched across his brow, a reflection of their shared anxiety for what lay ahead. Forcing herself to take a moment, Sarah leaned against the stable wall, taking deep breaths that struggled to ground her. The worst of the storm had passed, but she could still hear the wind howling outside, a reminder of the turmoil waiting to engulf them once the skies cleared. "We need to gather the community," she said suddenly, feeling a surge of urgency. "If we're going to stand together against these developers, we can't wait until the storm calms down. The fight is far from over." David seemed taken aback, glancing toward the turbulent skies outside, but his resolve quickly returned. "You're right, now's the time to rally them. We can't let fear control us." Just as the two began discussing their next steps, Jake paced nervously in his stall, his instincts still heightened from their harrowing escape. The bond between Sarah and Jake was deeper than she could fully articulate, and here in the storm's aftermath, she felt that connection pulsing through her. "Stay close. Jake, stay with me," she whispered, leading him out into the small barn area where the lanterns flickered, casting shadows that danced like spirits. The storm had transformed the world outside, but it had also illuminated the path forward for Sarah in that moment of stillness and shelter. She knew the fight wasn't just about the land anymore. It was about community, connection, and the love for every single creature that called this place home. The wake of the storm brought new energy, a sense of urgency that galvanized her spirit. "Tomorrow we stand strong," she vowed to Jake, and to herself as the winds finally began to calm. There was much to do, and every heartbeat echoed the promise of the battle still ahead. With her loyal companion by her side, she felt the weight of responsibility lift, steeling herself for the confrontations and challenges that loomed on the horizon. As the rain softened to a lullaby, Sarah stood, resolutely a warrior for her home, ready to fight, ready to protect everything she held dear. The storm outside had settled, but inside her heart the fire burned ever brighter. Together they would face whatever challenges awaited. The reckoning, the sun peeked through the dissipating clouds the following morning, but it brought little solace to Sarah as she stood at the entrance of the stable. The remnants of the storm lay scattered around her broken branches, leaves stripped from their trees, and the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. Yet, even in the aftermath of chaos, there was an undeniable beauty to the world around her. It was a reminder of resilience amidst destruction. Nature always found a way to reclaim itself, but today she felt a tight coil of anxiety in her stomach. The community meeting was set for later that evening, and the stakes couldn't be higher. She wanted to rally the townspeople to show them the true strength of their bond, but she also felt the weight of their doubts. Would they be willing to stand together and protect their home? With a firm resolve, she approached Jake, whose deep brown eyes seemed to shine with understanding. "Today, we fight for our future, Jake," she said softly, rubbing his neck. "We have to show them what this land means, what it's worth." He snorted in response, as if echoing her determination. After saddling Jake, she made her way out to the fields. The hills stretched before her, the patches of green contrasting beautifully with the dark soil. As they galloped over the landscape, Sarah felt something awaken inside her, a fierce, unyielding spirit igniting her desire to protect everything she loved. They rode through the woods that had given her solace, each tree standing tall and resolute after the storm. She imagined the stories each one held, the laughter of children, whispers of friends, and moments that would forever etch themselves into the fabric of her memories. It fueled her desire to fight harder. When Sarah returned to the stable, the sun had risen higher, casting long shadows over the ground. She spent the afternoon calling upon neighbors and friends who had stood by her during countless rides and adventures. One by one, they gathered in small groups, many still uncertain but hopeful. "Gather around," Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the swirl of nerves within. "Tonight we have an opportunity to take a stand together. We cannot let this land be taken from us without a fight." A few murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd, but doubt still lingered in the air like a thick fog. As she looked around, she spotted David standing with arms crossed. His brow was furrowed, as serious as always, but there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "We need to be prepared for anything. These developers won't back down easily," he reminded them, his tone firm but encouraging. With each face before her, Sarah felt the urgency build within her. "We can't afford to waver now. This land is a part of us. Every sunrise, every memory. Call upon those emotions. Remind them of everything we've built here." She paused, searching for the words that could ignite their spirits. "Let's bring our families, our children, and show them that we will not stand idly by while they take away our home." That night, as dusk settled, the town hall buzzed with energy. Sarah felt goosebumps prick up her arms as she scanned the crowd. The townsfolk were gathering, drawn into the warmth of community and the fire in her heart. Together, they shared stories of how they had come to love this place. As people exchanged recollections, their voices wove a tapestry of historia. First ride on their favorite horses, moments of triumph marked by laughter, and the quiet joys of watching children play in the fields. Each memory reminded them of what was truly valuable, leaving Sarah with an undeniable sense of purpose. As the meeting began, Sarah took a deep breath and approached the podium, locking eyes with Jake's unwavering spirit outside the window. He seemed to embody everything she believed in: the strength, the loyalty, the history. It grounded her. The murmurs in the hall quieted, and she raised her hands to still any lingering doubts. "Tonight we stand at a crossroads." Her voice cut through the heavy air, charged with passion. "What do we want our future to look like? A few stores that will change overnight? Or a community built upon memories that sustain us?" Applause erupted, ringing through the room, feeding her determination. Yet just as hope surged, a figure rose from the back, a developer armed with slick papers and an air of arrogance. "You may love this land," he began, his voice smooth and condescending, "but think of the jobs this new development could bring. Think of the progress." The room fell silent. Shadows dawned in the faces of her friends, and Sarah's heart raced. "Progress should not come at the expense of our history," she countered, her voice shaking with resolve. "We can have both if we work together. We must find a way to protect what this land stands for." With every word, doubts began to melt away. Other residents stood, sharing their stories, rallying behind their love for their community and home. They spoke of the rich tapestry woven through generations, of connections that ran deeper than profits or new parking lots. But the developer pressed, throwing around numbers and promises, attempting to weaken their collective spirit. "You cannot hold on to the past forever," he said, a smirk creeping across his face as tensions hung thick in the air. Sarah felt a chilling sense of urgency. The stakes were rising, and it was clear not everyone was swayed by sentimental tales. Whispers of skepticism rippled through the crowd, threatening to fracture their resolve. In that moment, she glanced toward the back of the hall where Jake stood waiting. It filled her with strength and clarity. "We may not have concrete plans drawn up like you," Sarah said, her voice now forthright and unwavering. "But what you fail to see is that our strength lies not in profit margins, but in each other. It lies in this land that has nurtured not just us, but generations before us." As her words took hold, the hall erupted once more. The residents rallied around her, sharing their feelings, united in resistance. She could see the energy shift, the tide building against the developers' attempts to drown out their voice. But then, a sharp sound cut through the thunderous applause. Another crack of thunder rang out louder than before, causing everyone to pause. A chilling wave of anxiety washed over Sarah. It felt as if the storm was echoing the unrest growing inside the community. "Enough of this sentimental bravado," the developer shouted, standing defiantly. "What happens when the next storm comes? This is not the time for nostalgia." His rudeness fanned the flames of Sarah's anger. "Do you think we'll just sit by and let our community fade into oblivion?" She shot back, every word laced with fervor. "We stand here, not just for ourselves, but for those who will come after us. We are capable of thriving in the present while holding on to the legacy of our past." Suddenly, darkness outside thickened and a flash of lightning illuminated the windows. Gas filled the air as shadows danced across the walls. Anxiety gripped Sarah. Something felt off. The storm roared again, almost as if it were responding to the commotion inside. The developer, sensing the change, sneered in arrogance, confident that his words would prevail. But then, in a moment that would change everything, the electricity flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. An unsettling silence fell over the crowd, interrupted only by whispered murmurs and nervous laughter. In the pitch black, uncertainty gripped Sarah's heart. "Stay calm," David called, his voice strong against the chaos. "We've been through storms before." Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from outside, breaking the anxious stillness, followed by frantic sounds. A voice cried out, followed by a scream from the street. Panic swept through the hall like wildfire, and Sarah's heart raced. What was that? Someone shouted. The developer's bravado evaporated as everyone turned toward the door. "Jake!" Sarah cried out, fear creeping into her voice. Without hesitation, she bolted toward the exit, her heart pounding. The hall erupted into chaos, but she felt driven forward by instinct as she stepped outside. The wind whipped around her, lightning flashing above. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. A fallen branch had struck the nearby electrical box, and sparks flew like firecrackers. A crowd gathered, shouting, unsure of what to do. "Jake!" Sarah yelled again, desperation rising in her chest. The noise of the storm mixed with cries of alarm frayed her nerves. She pushed through the crowd, desperately searching for her companion. "Jake, where are you?" Suddenly, a familiar nicker reached her ears, strained but clear. She turned, quickly spotting him off to the side, his dark figure visible beneath the downpour. Relief flooded through her as she rushed toward him, but as she reached out, the electric box behind her erupted into a shower of sparks. "Watch out!" Someone screamed, but it was too late. Sarah felt a surge of energy pulsing through the chaos, through the pay. air as the box exploded with a deafening crack, sending debris everywhere. She instinctively threw herself onto Jake, shielding him as the hot metal rained down around them. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she pulled Jake closer. The crowd around her erupted into chaos. People ran in all directions as the sky roared above. The developer stood frozen, shock flashing across his face. They had crossed a line, and now nature had responded. Panic consumed the crowd, but Sarah remained grounded, focused on getting Jake to safety. "We have to go," she shouted above the din of chaos, and she led him toward the stable. Fear raced within her, but she couldn't let it sway her. They needed to regroup. As they made it inside, the soothing barn air enveloped them, and Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. "It'll be okay, Jake," she reassured him, her heart racing. But uncertainty hung heavy in the air. The storm outside raged on relentlessly. Moments later, David burst into the stable behind them, breathless. "Is everyone all right?" he asked, searching the space with urgency. "Yes, but we can't let fear hold us back. We still need to talk about our future," Sarah insisted, her voice rising in determination. "We can't let them win." As the storm began to dissipate, a new wave of adrenaline coursed through her. Even now, as chaos surrounded them, she knew something had shifted and they had an opportunity to take control of this moment. Together, they gathered the crowd into the stable, their spirits reignited by both fear and fierce determination. "We will stand tall against those who wish to tear us apart," Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the lingering chaos. "We will fight for our home." In that charged atmosphere, they took a collective step forward, vowing to protect everything they held dear. Outside, the storm's remnants faded, but the fire that burned within them only grew stronger as the last flickers of lightning faded from the sky. A promise lingered in the air. Together, they would face whatever challenges awaited them. United, they would reclaim their truth, a testament to the resilience, the memories, and the love that would forever bind them to the land.